What's up YouTube, it's Yugioh God 1000 here, doing a episode on side decking. Now, when you're in a locals or regionals, right, so you're at a tournament, you're going to be doing best of 3, and which is called a match. So you've got to win 2 out of the 3 to move on. Now, games 2 and 3, you want to side some cards out that are bad against your opponent, and side in some cards that are good. So that's what I'm going to help with you today. So, first up we got Thunder King. So, Thunder King Yugioh shuts down any deck that searches. It stops that, and also it's got a secondary effect that can negate the special summon of an opponent's monster. Along with its high 1900 attack, it makes it a very good card to side in against most decks. Right. Then we got Effect Veiler. Now, Effect Veiler negates the effects of one of your opponent's monsters until the end of the turn. Fairly easy to use. It works good against lots of decks. So it stops that initial play. So Tour Guide, Rabbit, any Insector cards. It's just good to hold them off for that turn. Then we have 2 Maxi. So Maxi is a good card to side against decks that special summon a lot. Now, you can discard this card during either player's turn, so that when your opponent special summons, you get to draw a card off it. So you can chain this to the activation of an effect from Tour Guide to draw a card when the target comes out. It's also good for shutting down your opponent. They're not going to want to keep on special summoning once you've activated Max C. Very handy. We have Electric Virus, so you can discard this card from your hand to the grave to take control of your opponent's dragon or machine type monster till the end of the turn. So this is very good against Chaos Dragons and any machine, so Gears, Machina, alright, Ancient Gears, anything like that. So it's very handy to have. Now, Kaikos against any deck that revolves around the graveyard and banishes stuff from the graveyard. So when this card inflicts battle damage, you can target up to 2 of your opponent's monsters and banish them from their graveyard. And while this card remains face up on the field, your opponent cannot banish cards from either player's graveyard. So it's very handy, and it's got a high 1800 attack, and it's also a dark monster, so it works well with lots of decks. Very nice card. Then we have Yugioh. So this is cards good against Lagiers and pesky back rows. If you're playing a Chaos deck or any deck that revolves around the graveyard, if your opponent sides in some Dimensional Fishes or some Macrocosmos, you want to get rid of that straight away. So Yugioh is very good at doing that. Then we got Snowman Eater. So Snowman Eater is excellent against Dino Rabbit. So if they make Lagier and they attack into your Snowman Eater, you can just destroy your opponent's monster. And so it's very good at stopping that Lagier. And we have the last one, Fossil Diner. So Fossil Diner, when he's flipped face up, destroys all special summon monsters. And while he's face up on the field, your opponent cannot special summon any card. So neither player can special summon when he's face up. So very handy against any deck that special summons a lot. So must have. Now onto the spells. So we have 2 Smashing Grounds. Now this card is good against any deck that has high attack monsters and you need to get rid of it. So it destroys the monster your opponent controls with the highest defense. So if you're stuck in a tight corner and you want to side in some cards to stop your opponent, then this is a good one. So if you top deck this and your opponent has one really strong monster, it's easy to get rid of them. Then we have your MST, so you're going to side in extra MSTs against back row heavy deck, and also if they have any continuous spells or traps that stuff you up, then you want to side these in to get rid of them. You have Soul Taker. So Soul Taker stops Light Pulsar Dragon and Elemental Hero the Shining. It does this by causing them to miss timing. So it destroys one monster your opponent controls, one face-up monster, and then your opponent gains 1,000 life points. So the last thing to happen is them gaining life points. So Light Pulsar misses timing, and so does Elemental Hero Shining. Next we have Messenger of Peace. This is just a stole. Hold off your opponent until you have enough power to overtake them. It's very handy in those tight situations. We have Prohibition, so you call one card your opponent controls, they cannot use that. It's very good to make your opponent slow down, okay, to stop using them crucial cards, and just wait till you have any cards that can overcome that. And Night Beam. So Night Beam destroys one set spell or trap card your opponent controls, but they cannot activate the targeted card in response. So that's it for the spells. Now onto the traps. We have 2 Dust Tornado. So this card is pretty much like a MST. Side in some extra ones against to get rid of that back row, because yeah, it's very dangerous trap cards can be. So we just want to get rid of those with Dust Tornado. And then we can also set one spell or trap from our hand. So that's pretty good. Then we have Mind Crush. So Mind Crush, when your opponent adds a card to his or her hand, they're going to have to reveal it to you to confirm that it was the right card. So that at that time, then you can Mind Crush that card away to the grave. So it's very good, especially if your opponent has multiple copies of it. Then we have Soul Drain. So Soul Drain, pay 1,000 life points to activate it, but the effects of monsters that are in the graveyard and banished cannot be activated. Okay, that's starter chain. So that's also very handy. Next we have probably the most hated trap card in the game, Macrocosmos. So this card, while it's face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So lots of people absolutely hate this card, and that's why we have our MSTs and our Dust Tornadoes to get rid of it. But I suggest if your deck does not revolve around the graveyard, then Macrocosmos would be an excellent card to side in. Then we have 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. So this negates all the effects of dark monsters that activates in the field and in the grave. So it shuts down any dark orientated deck, and it can really hurt them. Now the last 2 cards are similar: Gozen Match and Rivalry of Warlords. So these cards, when your opponent can only control each face-up type and attribute with Gozen, so your opponent cannot attempt to special summon any monster other than the type or attribute they have on the field. So if your deck can either run all of one type or all of one attribute, then Gozen and Rivalry are really good to side in. So that's it, guys, for my side decking tutorial. Now it's very handy to keep an eye out for these cards, just in case your opponent's using them. They're not too hard to get their hands on, right? All of them are fairly cheap, right? And it can just help you in those really tight situations. If you can't get over something, or you need to get around a spell or a trap, then any of these cards can help with that. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I'd like it if you could comment, rate and subscribe, and apart from that, Yugioh God 1000 signing off.